Theresa Caputo, star of Long Island Medium, faces off with her husband over their divorce. The life of Long Island Medium star Theresa Caputo is once again the focus of new controversy. She declared in December 2017 that she and her ex-husband, Larry Caputo, had decided to part ways after a 30-year marriage. Both of them were preoccupied with their own lives following the split, but a lot has changed since then. Larry abruptly declared in a recent interview, "I want to marry Theresa again." We weren't meant to split up. Everyone was taken aback by this admission, including Theresa. Surprisingly, though, Theresa did not flatly deny Larry's suggestion. Rather, with composure and maturity, she responded, "I agree, but I have some conditions." Theresa pointed out that if they mend their previous mistakes and rebuild their relationship, it will be in a different way, with new guidelines that are founded on more understanding, respect, and distance. Whatever went wrong in the 30-year relationship will never be repeated. "I want to make sure," he said plainly. "People like Theresa don't come around twice in life," Larry added, adding that he was prepared to accept all of Theresa's requirements. Fans now only have one question. Will Theresa and Larry's relationship resume? Time will tell, but based on their conversational style and mutual regard, it appears that their narrative may not be over yet. Theresa Caputo's home was still softly lit by warm yellow lights, even though the sun had already set over Long Island. Readings, interviews, and the drive across town had made for a long day. When her phone buzzed, she finally settled down with a cup of tea on the couch. For a long time, she gazed at the television. On occasion, they discussed birthdays, family gatherings, and other topics. The message tonight, however, was different. There was an odd weight in her chest. She sensed that this was not a lighthearted discussion. After she consented, Larry was at her door in half an hour. He was more apprehensive than she had ever seen him, not even during their early marriage. "May I enter?" "Quietly?" he inquired. Theresa moved aside and nodded. To lighten the situation, she joked, "You look like you're about to confess to murder." He was not amused, not even a grin. It was then that she realized this was no idle conversation. This was a significant event. Larry sat across from Theresa, his hands trembling a little while she sipped her tea. There was a long pause before he spoke. "I want to remarry you, Theresa." She blinked multiple times since it was so abrupt and direct. The words were too much for her head to digest. "You what?" Larry took a deep breath. "I would like to remarry you. I believe that my worst life mistake was divorcing you." There was a total stillness in the room. The clock even seemed to stop ticking. Theresa remained silent. She was unable to. She could feel her heart thumping in her ears. This was not one of the many things she had envisioned Larry saying tonight. Fearing she would stop him, Larry hurried on. "I came to realize that there aren't many people like you in the world. I felt like I needed room. I believed that a different kind of living was what I needed. However, I felt as though I was losing a piece of myself each time I attempted to move on. He inhaled. "I want us to return." Theresa reclined, taking it all in. 30 years is a long time, Larry. What transpired between us was significant. "I know," he said right away, "and I'm prepared to make everything right. Whatever you ask me to do, I'm willing to do it." Theresa startled him with quiet strength rather than tears, rage, or laughter. Finally, she answered, "I agree." Larry's head jerked upward. You concur?" "Yes," she murmured quietly, "but only under certain circumstances." He now appeared frightened once again. Theresa spoke steadily as she leaned forward. "Mature. Managed. This needs to be something new if we do it again, Larry. A fresh start, not an extension of the previous marriage. The patterns are different, not the same errors." Larry gave a quick nod. "I agree." She said more firmly, "I mean it. Whatever didn't work in the past, a lack of respect, a lack of communication, or a lack of emotional space, can't happen again." "It won't," he assured. Theresa kept a close eye on him. At that moment, she was reading him, just as she had done for decades, rather than spirits. She also saw that his eyes were clear for the first time in years. Willpower. The truth. "Are you certain about this?" she inquired. Larry met her eyes with his own. "Indeed, 100%, Theresa. I want to win you back. I still love you for who you are, not because we had a history together or because we were married for 30 years. A tiny, heartfelt smile curved Theresa's lips. Then we give it a shot, she muttered. Fans have never witnessed anything like what happened over the next few months. They were rebuilding, but they weren't quite a couple yet. Together, they took walks. Dinners were once more shared. They had a deeper conversation than they had in their 30 years of marriage. It wasn't ostentatious. There was no drama. It was a slow, silent healing. During events, interviews, and public appearances, fans began to notice how close they were. Online rumors erupted. Have they reconciled? Is Larry making another proposal? Will Theresa wed her former spouse again? Nothing was affirmed or refuted. But there was no denying that something had changed. A reporter once asked Theresa directly if they were getting back together at a charity function. Slowly and politely, "We are rebuilding. Whatever occurs, we'll do so at the appropriate moment." Larry, who was standing next to her, continued, "Love stories don't always end when you expect them to." They were once more outside Theresa's house one evening, a long time later. It was a clear, starry sky, unusual for Long Island. Larry turned to face her and mutely said, "Thank you for giving me another chance, Theresa. I am aware that I didn't deserve it." Theresa lightly touched his arm. "You're making an effort. That's what counts. But keep in mind that this time we're building a marriage, not a jail. This time, rather than drifting apart, we grow." But Theresa Caputo had always been renowned for her extraordinary talent for communicating with the other side and perceiving voices and spirits that others were unable to. But one cool fall morning, as she sat in her brightly illuminated Long Island kitchen, a different type of curiosity began to stir within her. It was the silent, enduring pull of her own family's past, not the murmurs of the spirits she was used to. Clara Hughes, a skilled genealogist and her confidant, had been pushing her to look into her roots for months. Over coffee one afternoon, Clara had said, her eyes glistening with delight, "Theresa, you have such a remarkable gift. Consider how much more profound your spiritual work could become if you were aware of the source of your family's energy." Theresa had been unsure. She wasn't sure she was prepared for the surprises that might be hidden in dusty attics and ancient records, because delving into one's past might be intimidating. However, she discovered that the pull was too much to ignore that day while drinking chamomile tea and snuggled in a warm sweater. She called Clara after picking up the phone. She said, "Let's do it. Let's discover the narrative." Clara brought boxes of papers, antique photos, and a laptop loaded with genealogical databases to Theresa's house in less than a week. Birth certificates, marriage licenses, and census data were the first things they looked at. Theresa began to experience the recognizable prickling feeling in her chest, the one that alerted her to the presence of a spirit, as they went deeper. However, the energy this time came from the echo of her ancestors, whispering through the pages of history rather than from a deceased person. One morning, Clara held up a fading photo of a stern-looking woman with piercing eyes and said, "Look at this. Eleanor Caputo is your great-great-grandmother. She was a Sicilian immigrant who lived during the early 1900s. In her village, she was well known for possessing peculiar skills." Leaning closer, Theresa examined the picture. The woman's presence was nearly palpable to her. Eleanor's eyes had a tenacity about them, a blend of melancholy and resiliency. Theresa's hand shook a little. "Unusual skills?" Softly, she inquired. Clara said in a quiet voice, "Yes." People claimed that she had the ability to detect things that others did not. She was able to communicate in ways that no one else could understand, and she was able to foretell what would happen in her family. Some said she had a gift that either blessed or cursed her. Theresa's thoughts were racing. Is it possible that her skills were a generational thread, rather than merely a personal characteristic? It was a thrilling and humble concept. Clara and Theresa discovered more facets of her family's past as the days went by. Eleanor's brother, Antonio Caputo, had fought in World War I and had kept a thorough journal of his experiences. The notebook included letters to Eleanor concerning visions of deceased family members, as well as entries about dreams that appeared to predict actual events. As Theresa clutched the delicate pages in her hands, a shiver went down her spine. Clara opened an antique leather-bound ledger and remarked, "There's something else. This was owned by Marco Caputo, your great-grandfather. He was a healer and herbalist. People traveled great distances to seek his treatments. However, take a look at this 1927 article, where he describes a family youngster who sees the unseen and speaks to the shadows. That child sounds familiar. Theresa felt her heart beat faster, like sunlight penetrating clouds. The realization came gradually. Her gift was a legacy that had been passed down through the generations and was just waiting to be awakened in the proper person, not a contemporary anomaly. Then came the revelation that made all the difference. Clara discovered letters that had been concealed for decades in a modest, inconspicuous box marked private. They were sent by an enigmatic correspondent in Naples to Theresa's grandma, Rosa. The letters described a clandestine familial society, a collection of spiritual advisors and mediums who had preserved afterlife information for ages. Rosa had received training at an early age, and the letters suggested that she had taught Theresa's mother, Marianne, some of her tactics before passing them on to Theresa. With tears in her eyes, Theresa reclined. Although she had always been aware of the uniqueness of her relationship with the spirits, she had never envisioned it as a component of such a complex whole. She was the product of a lineage of spiritual sensitivity that had been cultivated through the contributions of each generation's power, insight, and wisdom. Theresa called her mother that night and told her all they had discovered. "I always hoped you would discover this someday," Marianne replied after listening quietly. "Theresa, our family has always been unique. You can now see why." The weeks that followed were life-changing. Theresa started incorporating what she had learned into her readings. She sensed the ancestral energies that ran through the people who came to her for assistance, feeling a stronger bond with them. Her readings held an almost palpable feeling of history, ancestry, and continuity, and people sensed a slight shift in her presence. Theresa was sitting by herself in her living room one evening when she held a picture of Theresa Caputo. "Thank you for this gift," she said in a quiet voice that echoed through the ages. "I'll respect that and get on with your task." The windows were closed, but a breeze rustled the drapes together. Feeling the warmth of her ancestors' approval, Theresa grinned. She realized for the first time that her ability was a heritage, a link between the past, present, and future, rather than just a personal skill. She knew she was right where she was supposed to be as the spirits spoke all around her. Theresa Caputo had always served as a bridge between the afterlife and the living. She now bore the burden and the awe of her family's remarkable past, a heritage that spanned generations and shaped, mentored, and enabled her to completely accept her destiny. She also realized something deep in that peaceful moment. Some gifts are inherited, fostered, and exposed at the perfect moment rather than being born. But Theresa Caputo inhaled deeply and slowly as the Long Island Medium stage's studio lights lowered a bit. She was going to meet a woman she had never met before, a woman whose life had been too long marred by tragedy. As the camera focused on Theresa, the audience, giddy with expectation, waited in polite stillness. Theresa looked around the room, following her instincts, and her gaze softened. She said, "I feel a very strong presence," in a soothing yet very warm voice. "There is someone here who has been dealing with days when happiness seemed unattainable, someone who has been carrying a heavy heart." A shy voice came from the back of the room. With her hands gripping the arm of her chair, as though to keep herself together, a woman murmured, "That's me. My husband passed away a year ago. I find it difficult to move on. It feels like every day is empty." Theresa gave a nod, her face soft. "I get it," she said. "I'm here to inform you that he has been attempting to get in touch with you. He wants you to know that he still loves you, that he is keeping an eye on you, and that although while your pain is natural, it doesn't have to define your life. He is with me right now," Theresa continued as the woman's eyes sparkled with tears. "He keeps track of every aspect of your lives together, the subtle jokes that no one else understood, the way he would hold your hand in the quiet periods of the night, and the way he used to make you laugh when you were angry. Even if he isn't physically present, he wants you to experience that once more." Theresa took a moment to process the words. "He's reaching out, I see. He is trying to tell me that he wants you to forgive yourself for your guilt. You may hold yourself accountable for actions that you did not take. However, he wants you to understand that there is nothing to be forgiven. He took pride in the life you led together, and he still does." I don't know how to feel joy anymore," the widow muttered, her hands shaking. Theresa gave a gentle smile. That's all right. You can't rush grief. He wants you to understand, nevertheless, that your love endures beyond death. It changes. He is present in every memory you have of him, every smile you get from a remembrance, and every act of kindness you perform. He is encouraging you. Theresa lowered her voice as though disclosing a personal secret and leaned in a little. He shows me a garden where you two used to spend peaceful evenings. I hear him say that he wants you to sow new seeds, to honor the life you two shared, and the love that still envelops you. Not to replace him, never to replace him. The woman was startled by the sound of her unsteady laugh. I never thought I'd be able to laugh that much again. Theresa's eyes were bright. That's him. That is his way of reminding you that happiness honors love rather than betrays it. The connection never truly ends, so you can experience love even when he's not around. He is expressing to me his pride in you, his desire for you to find serenity, and his unwavering spiritual support. The woman's hand was hovered over by Theresa's. I want you to close your eyes for a moment right now. Take a breath. Feel him. Feel as though he is hugging you from all sides. He is present. He is with you. Additionally, he wants you to begin reopening to the outside world gradually. With tears welling up in her eyes, the woman closed them. I sense him. I can truly sense him. Theresa grinned, her voice barely audible above a whisper but powerful enough to fill the space. That is your present. That's what he told you. He wants you to live life to the fullest, rediscover your own love, and carry his memory as a source of light rather than a burden. The woman's eyes were brighter when she opened them, glimmering with a flimsy but genuine optimism. Thank you, she said in a murmur as she glanced at Theresa. I appreciate you showing me that he is still alive. Theresa gave a nod. He has been all along, and you are now too. You are allowed to be happy. You are allowed to smile. You are allowed to survive, due to the fact that love is eternal. Observing a moment that seemed sacrosanct, the crowd sat in reverent quiet. Some just put their palms to their hearts, while others wiped the tears off their cheeks. For one widow, the unthinkable came true in that room. Love and pain blended together, and hope started to blossom once more for the first time in a long time. The woman's steps were lighter than they had been in months as Theresa watched her leave the stage. She was aware that her actions were motivated by times like this, which went beyond the readings, lights, and cameras. There was a delicate, deep, and profoundly healing bond between the living and the dead, and love had once again healed the divide in that room. But that night, the soft studio lights glowed like the cozy mist of a peaceful sunset. The audience fell silent as Theresa Caputo entered the tiny stage, her blonde hair glistening in the lights. It wasn't the typical live performance. The crowd was smaller and more personal, and the atmosphere felt deeper and heavier, as though everyone was carrying a secret. Theresa closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and let her hands move lightly in the air. She said, "Spirit is coming through strong." A loved one passed away tragically, unexpectedly, and there is a great deal of guilt left behind. A woman in the second row raised her head sharply. She was a 33-year-old Massachusetts nurse named Emily Rivers. She had been conflicted from the moment she entered the studio. While she needed answers, she wasn't sure she was prepared to hear them. But Emily's chest constricted when Theresa's eyes opened and fell on her. Theresa pointed and whispered, "You? I need to talk to you, honey." With a cautious nod, Emily's voice wavered between optimism and terror. Theresa approached her, feeling Spirit so strongly that she nearly shuddered. "I sense a youthful masculine vibe," Theresa remarked. "He keeps saying he's sorry, he apologizes repeatedly, Em. I apologize." Emily immediately covered her mouth. Before she could stop them, she started crying. "My brother is that," she muttered. "Michael." Theresa nodded in a stern yet reassuring voice. By his own hands he passed. He accepts accountability. However, honey, he wants you to know that you weren't the reason he left. Emily's shoulders were trembling. However, I was the last person he contacted. I didn't answer. I assumed it had nothing to do with my fatigue. After that, she was unable to complete the phrase. Theresa covered her heart with a kind hand. "He claims that you have carried guilt that you never had." The only sounds in the room were Theresa's gentle guidance and Emily's quiet sobbing. There was no movement or whispering. Listening to something that only she could hear, Theresa cocked her head. Did he play the guitar he's showing me? Yes, Emily exhaled. He performed each night. He claims that when the world seemed too loud, he used the guitar as an escape. He wants you to know that you weren't the source of the darkness he experienced. My mind wasn't kind to me, he admits. I didn't wish to do harm to anyone. Emily shuddered. I always suspected he was struggling, but he wasn't diagnosed. Theresa gave a nod. He claims that you were the only person who gave him a sense of security, yet he felt bad about depending on you. He did not wish to be a burden to you. Emily started crying. He was never a burden. Leaning closer, Theresa seemed to be conveying a divine message. You are heard by him. He claims to now understand that. Theresa took a sharp breath. He's showing me the moment. Oh boy. The day. She held the air between her palms and closed her eyes. He's showing me you outside the medical facility. Is that correct? Emily gave a shaky nod. On the eve of his death, I worked 2 shifts. I went outside to give him another call, but it was already too late. Please stop reliving that moment. You couldn't have known, he says. I couldn't have been saved by you. Emily's eyes were puffy and red when she glanced up at Theresa. However, how can I forgive him? How can I forgive myself? With a gentle touch, Theresa touched Emily's shoulder. Honey, forgetting what occurred isn't forgiveness. It's acknowledging that you both did your best with what you knew and your hearts. Theresa's eyes widened once more. His hand is resting on your shoulder. Every time you cry in the car, he claims to have been there for you. Each time you stay out of his room. Before going to bed, each time you clutch his sweater, Emily took a sharp breath. I felt someone there and I thought I was going crazy, Theresa whispered. That was him. And he says, stop punishing yourself for no fault of your own. There was a charge in the room. Something warm, like a blanket, like sunlight, like tranquilly, descended upon Emily. Theresa grinned abruptly. You are receiving a sign from him. A very particular one. He claims that whenever he wants you to know he's present, he sends you cardinals, or redbirds. Emily gave a forceful nod. Indeed. My window is visited each morning by a red cardinal. I assumed it was a coincidence. She put her hand to her chest. Theresa. That's him. He wishes to let you know that he still cares about you. He continues to keep an eye on you. Above all, he wants you to forgive yourself so that both you and he can relax. This time, Emily shed more tears, but they were softer, more fluid, and nearly liberating. Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Mina, and I hope you're having a great day. Remember to subscribe to the channel if you enjoy the video,